Hey guys, happy Thursday to everybody out there that's watching today. It's me, Brandy P, your neighborhood Bedlam Betty, the also Miss November, here for another fun podcast of the Yes I Am the Veteran podcast. And I'm super excited because of the fact that one of my favorite subjects, fire in general, we're going to talk about tonight at length, which I'm excited about. But before we do get into that, I did want to give a quick update. So there actually has been some recent changes with the old VA.gov with our female veterans that are having any postnatal care or needing any. Before, it was something like 6 months that they were offering. The VA has now extended that out to 1 year of postnatal care that the VA provides. So it's definitely something for our ladies that are expectant to kind of know, because I know for me, when I had my daughter, it was a lot of information that hit me at once. So definitely check out va.gov. Anybody that has maybe more questions. If you have anything additional, please reach out to our show and let us know. We do have our sister in arms with a service dog that was in a fight recently. And I had to have information on the pages regarding him. And definitely, if anyone is interested in helping our sister with some of the vet bills for that service dog, definitely let us know. Yes, he is half wolf. Which I think is probably the coolest looking service dog I've seen in a while. But at the end of the day, it's all about helping each other, right? And I mean, what defines a maker? In most terms, we think maker as we relate it to homemaker, right? You know, the only thing you can make is at the house. Well, you can also make things at the house that could burn your eyebrows off besides making. So I will go ahead and introduce our brother today and our guest, Forge and Fire competitor and the owner of the Volundr Forge, Mr. Alex Ruiz. How are you doing today, brother?
Doing good.
So,
how you doing?
I'm here as an ex-wife today. I don't know if you noticed, like the you know, I didn't have the horns, you know, out there in storage, you know. But so, could you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody that's watching that maybe recognizes you? Hey, this guy looks kind of familiar. I think I've seen him before, you know.
Yes, my name is Alex Ruiz. I am the owner of Volundr Forge, and yeah, some people recognize me from Forge and Fire. Although I find it funny because that was like 30 pounds ago and a lot less facial hair and certainly a lot less grays. So when people are like, "Oh, I remember you from the show," I'm like, I don't think I remember looking that bad when I was on. I was younger. I still had hope.
You were a veteran at the time? What? Were you a new veteran? You said you were a veteran with hope. It was a joke. I was like, were you a new veteran at the time? But that's pretty amazing, though. I mean, the face looks the same. So the Moneymaker definitely looks the same as the Forge and Fire episode. And then I got to talk to Tobin today, too, and he was also on Forge and Fire, which is pretty cool. So Tobin...
Yeah,
twice, yeah, that's what he was saying. Like, he was talking a bit about that. And I'm pretty honored that I have met multiple Forge and Fire brothers that have competed as veterans. And it's something that I think that it's great to talk about more. And what I love about your Forge is you do a lot of historical builds. And I don't know if you noticed behind this gentleman, but I was geeking out in his office for like an entire few hours last week because he's got everything from like Washington's teeth on down. Well, not exactly Washington's teeth, but pretty close. But it's pretty amazing just to see all the history in his office. Could you tell everybody that's watching, they'll be watching tomorrow, what is that? Can you tell me where that violin is from?
Yeah, so the violin, it's a Baroque era violin, so 1600 to 1750. It's very, very specific design and shape and profile. Average person, it's just going to be, oh, violin's a violin. But even some violinists, this is just going to be like, oh, it's just a violin. I mean, just looks weird. Yeah, certain differences that give it a tonal difference. And
yeah, the Viking Warhammer behind you, that also does that, sir.
Oh, okay.
I'm not gonna pull everything off your wall, but I was just giving you a hard time.
Yeah, it's an ancestral war club there. And behind me, you can't really see them. What? Right there. That's the Charles W. Morgan. It's a scrimshaw plate of the Charles W. Morgan ship, which is built in 1841. It still sails. It is at the Mystic Seaport Museum in Connecticut. And right over here is there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
It's opposite. Yeah, it's the USS Constitution, the American ship of
Oh,
state, built in 1797. She is still an active warship by it's under the domain of the United States Navy, but because it's a historical vessel, also complicates, you know, her designation is first and foremost, historical landmark, but also, the Navy owns it and operates on it, uses it for training. Um, so the sailors there are trained in, of course, everything modern, and they know how to actually take off on a fully masted ship.
so
Should be the rise.
yeah, honestly,
That's
you
weird.
never know when you need.
Press. I was gonna say, yeah, it'd be weird to have her pressed into service because, right next to her is the Cassin Young, which is very small battleship by comparison of like the USS Texas or the battleship New Jersey or the USS Lexington. So to put the USS Constitution next to some of our massive battleships would be kind of funny to see in actual. If she was pressed into service, you'd have these massive ships. This little tiny ship with masts and cannons still.
I mean,
The enemy would be
shocking, huh?
confused.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the surprise factor alone would probably definitely be helpful. I don't know if I'd want to be the one sailing on the ship necessarily.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
She was called Old Ironsides in her day, but she wouldn't stand against any kind of modern artillery fire.
Probably not. No. Yeah, I agree. So a lot of people don't know. Like, so you're a blacksmith and you're as well as a professor. So, could you explain a little bit more about like what the term like blacksmith or maker, what it means more? I know a lot of people kind of assume that it means something, but it doesn't necessarily mean what it is.
At its base components, a blacksmith is anyone who's using, a hammer, forge, and anvil to manipulate steel. Blacksmith is just derived of, someone who strikes black metal, or is just smith is like the word that derives from is to smite, to strike. I think it's Schmiede in German, which is still to strike something, but it has the connotation of blacksmithing. And then there's whitesmithing, which is just the old term for people who used to take what we would make, and then the people who would clean stuff up till it's nice and shiny. You'd pass your work over to the whitesmith, who would really take it up, clean it, get it ready for wherever it needed to go. So, base components, you're hitting metal you're playing with fire. You're playing with fire and a hammer, and that's it as most basic components. You can get really lost in the weeds to what blacksmithing is, and I'm not going to get into that one because no one has an answer. You get 5 of us in the room together, and you're going to get like 30 different answers as to what is smithing.
Definitely.
Blacksmithing, and it's just you'll not have a proper answer.
You not have a proper answer. That's fair. And so, what got you into blacksmithing? Because you did it, or even just throwing knives? Because I know you're a veteran as well. So, was this something that you were taught before you came in the military, or is this something that you learned after?
Oh, no, I worked with different veterans programs, but I myself am actually not a veteran.
Okay.
Yeah. It's because of my proximity to that and everything. Everyone's just like, oh, they just assume. I'm like, no, I'm not. Especially my love for military history and everything. But no, I've been fascinated by the way the smithing community has grown amongst veteran communities. I've been around enough to see how that grows, how that fosters the same kind of community involvement and engagement and growth. Because being in the military for the most part, you have a lot of people who equate it to family. Your battle buddy is going to be probably closer to you than whoever is waiting for you back home, because when you go through the stuff with somebody, it forms a bond that you just don't form anywhere else, really, right? And you can probably attest to that. Is like anything you're going to see or deal with, whether that's nights, days on watch on end when you're probably delirious and you got your friends there with you. that's never going to be the same as someone who's just, your buddy back home. It's a different type of community. It's a different type of family. And smithing has its own, tight-knit community, its own group of,
everybody knows everybody for sure.
Yeah, well, see, here's the thing. It's like I find blacksmithing events almost like family reunions. Only, family reunions without the drama. Nobody really wants to kill each other at the dinner table.
Everyone wants to hang out and check out what everyone else made. What'd you make, man? No, that's drop weight. That's awesome.
Yeah, especially with I'm blacksmiths especially have huge gatherings that displays of different types of skill sets and demonstrations. Bladesmithing has it too, but I think the blacksmiths are doing it for way longer in terms of as a community than the bladesmithing community has, because I'm using the understanding of the American Bladesmith Society and its founding as a primer for this is where bladesmithing really becomes a thing in the US, especially. Blacksmithing guilds have been doing this, gigging together forever. You know what I mean?
Thousands of years, literally. They've proven that, where they've gone back and seen, the support or the different builds, for different kings, or treating previous weapons that need to be restored with the bindings and things like that. William Wallace's sword, even to this day, is still treated actively. But they have to actually send it to England, which is funny, because they did so much to get away from the British. So it's the blade gets serviced by them, which I think is pretty amusing. But one thing I think that you do that's very interesting is you do a lot of historical builds on a lot of things that are very much rooted in the military. And I think that what's amazing about builds in general, and I'm a noob, real new, I'm not even a fraction of the learning, I guess. But at the end of the day, what I think is amazing about forging in general is the whole fact that you could start with a piece of scrap steel or a bed spring or something, anything, and you could turn it into something truly amazing if you pour your time in your craft and you put your work into it. And I think it really, I guess, speaks to me as a veteran, and it can speak to anybody really, but especially with the whole getting yourself back on track and finding your new normal after something has happened to you and you feel that you have no worth, right? A lot of the scrap steel, when we first get it, it looks like crap. And you see it and you're like, where did you pull that out of? And it doesn't matter because it's going to look even worse, before it looks better, when we're grinding it and, quenching and everything else, they're not cute. Blades don't pop out looking amazing. It takes time. And so I did find a fun article that they did for you and for Made in SA. So I wanted to go ahead and play that now. Is that okay if I play that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
Fire and steel has forged a business for one San Antonio man. Recently, his blacksmith skills put him on a national stage.
In today's Made in SA, I find out how he's turned a hobby into a thriving business called Volundr Forge.
You have 3 hours to forge your blades. Good luck. Your 10-minute design window starts now.
San Antonio native Alex Ruiz recently sharpened his skills by going up against some of the nation's top bladesmiths in the History Channel's televised competition, Forged in Fire.
My first instinct is to do what I know best.
And what he knows best is forging metal. He made it through the finals by creating a horseman's axe, his weapon put to the test easily slicing through the competition.
Sweet.
And sending this blacksmith home with a cash prize.
You are the Forged in Fire champion and will be receiving a check for $10,000. Good job.
So far, Forged in Fire has been probably the coolest experience I've ever had.
Since the show aired in May, Ruiz has become somewhat of a local celebrity.
The first night, after everyone saw it, my phone just nonstop went nuts.
Crazy for this hometown boy who can now hang his title with other recognized San Antonio and Texas blacksmiths.
I'm really excited to be given the opportunity to share what I love and also bringing another championship home for San Antonio and for Texas, because that keeps us in the lead.
Ruiz is still new to the craft. It's only been 3 years since he taught himself how to forge decorative metal by watching YouTube videos.
Despite being on Forge and Fire and showing, I guess, the world that, I know what I'm doing, making knives, I still find my first thing is decorative ironwork. Being able to make leaves or roses out of steel, forging that out, that's really, really still my thing, my forte.
After long days at his 9 to 5, most evenings you can find him out in his workshop creating his art.
Or just to work with your hands in general, to me, is just an awesome thing. It's almost like what you would call moving meditation.
These days, besides running his metal making business, Volundr Forge, he is also working to teach others the skill of blacksmithing.
So I would never have imagined that my hobby would have turned into something like this in 3 years.
Ruiz says he's humbled to know his win and his business have helped reinvigorate the world of blacksmithing.
I look forward to a time when maybe I'll get to do it again. And I don't know, maybe I might win again, maybe not. But either way, I've kind of proven to myself and others, hopefully, that, I've picked a good hobby, I guess, right?
Yeah, so you may be wondering what he did with that $10,000 cash prize. Ruiz says he bought some new equipment for his shop that I showed there in the story, and maybe even a new guitar. But he hopes to continue to make knives and steel works that he can donate to causes that he's passionate about. He likes to do that, make really nice pieces and then put them into different, say, Cancer Society is auctioning stuff off. So,
Right.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That is pretty cool. He's got a talent.
I've seen that show before, and I recognize him from the show.
You
I
did?
didn't
Oh,
realize
really?
he was. I didn't realize he was from San
Okay.
Antonio.
Yeah, kind of
That's pretty impressive.
Well, hopefully we'll be on to bigger and better things.
We're rooting
Bigger
for
and
him.
better knives. Yeah, I guess.
Axes, whatever.
He made it back.
Maybe cannons next. I don't know.
Maybe
Jeez.
cannons next.
Oh man, I haven't seen
Where do you
that.
know the key to San Antonio? That's pretty awesome.
I haven't seen that since it aired. So I was like, man, if I could go back and redo anything I said there, I was just like, man, I can think of a lot of things I'd rather say differently. But
Oh, you
At
can't
the
do that with
time-
interviews. They'll tear you apart.
well, here's the thing. When I competed on the show, I don't know, but on the bottom when I walked out, they're like 4 years experience, which is not. I don't know where they got something mixed up in translation there, because I only had 16 months behind me total when I won that episode.
Wow, really?
Well,
Like,
there
I
was-
feel like a
from the-
dirtbag now. It's been 2 years. I gotta get on it.
So between the start of when I first started forging and then being on Forge and Fire and everything, that was like 16 months. Yeah, no. So I think by the time it aired, because it literally took a year for that episode to air. So what you're watching is like I had already come back from Blade Show Atlanta, and that was I think 2-3 weeks afterwards. So it had been like a year and almost 3 years. So I kind of like rounded it up because it took that long for the episode to air.
Yeah.
11 months and
Ink Master's
11
kind of like that
months.
too. It takes a while.
Yeah, 11 months, 2 weeks for it to air. There's a whole mess to that. I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but I'm just going to say like there was a bit of a scheduling conflict with how they were airing episodes. So 4 episodes really took extra long to air, and ours was one of them. So.
Oh wow. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you do look at the baby face. Like, so there's another Forge and Fire champion as well, Matt Cotton. He competed, and he had even more of a baby face. So it's kind of funny seeing you. I'm like, oh, look how I look. Yeah, look, it was like a few years ago.
Look at me now. Look at me now. I'm haggard.
Just say
I got
students.
the. I'm pulling. My face is starting to pull a little bit. I'm starting to look like a really confused Robert De Niro. You know what I mean? That's like, hey, I'm like the Mad TV version of Robert De Niro. So yeah, no.
You used to make knives, so that's pretty cool. I think Robert De Niro would approve.
Yeah, it was in The Godfather.
right? Like he did a lot of things, man. We'd be here like all day just quipping like one-liners from all of his movies.
Yeah.
But what was I going to say? I guess for a lot of people that think that they can't learn, like, 'cause, I mean, they specifically talk about like, you were largely self-taught. You can, be your own best, and I guess, ambassador for yourself, your advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
And for you, I mean, you were watching YouTube. Was this like during COVID you were watching them and learning, or was it just like over time?
I see. I didn't really get into learning with anyone else until I want to say about a few months before I competed for Forge and Fire. That's when
Wow.
I took a class. I took a class with Tobin, actually, Stonehaven Knife Works,
I love
when
that.
he was still teaching at Southwest School of Art, and they had a bladesmithing intro class, and that was like an 8-week course or something, like one class every week for 8 weeks or whatever. And I took that one. And that was the first time I actually spent time with someone else who was in it. And at this time, his episode already aired. He was kind of like a local, people knew him because he was like San Antonio based. He's from Pearsall. So especially everyone down in Pearsall. Yes, Pearsall guy, wins the episode. And that was November of 2016 when I took his class. And I competed in the summer of 2017.
Oh, wow.
A very, very short time, but I learned a lot in that intervening time. And by the time I was on the show, it was really just they had reached out to me via Instagram. Actually, I thought they were a bot or a scam.
Oh, you're like scam. See, now everything's a scam, people. Sometimes it's the actual people, because the ad council does the same thing. They reach out to people.
Well, I thought it was a scam at first, and then all of a sudden they called me on my cell phone. They're like, "No, we got your information from so and so." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I'm like, "Oh," and then the rest is history.
Yeah, literally. And what I think is great is that you do historical builds, and that's one thing that they didn't show at length, and I wanted to talk about historical. So we're doing builds. Like I know a lot of makers and blacksmiths. They like. They see. I know some of them. They'll see movies and they'll see a blade in a movie, and they're like, "I can make a better knife." Like I know I'm still doing that with like a blade I saw at a Rammstein show, the Mindtile knife. Like I want to redo it because it's like I can do better. Like a lot of people they like to do that. For you specifically, has there been any builds that you've done lately since like that aired that you're pretty proud of? That's more historical type build. I know you got a bunch.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was 2018. Because that aired a few weeks after the episode came out. So actually, it aired 3 weeks after the episode did. And so a lot of time has passed. I've worked with a lot of places historically. I am still the blacksmith that the Alamo calls on when they need for special projects or demonstrations.
That is an honor because there are so many people that want that specific task because it's like such a I guess status boost or just like a pat on the back where they're recognizing your skill because they don't just let anybody work on things to do with the Alamo. Like they're quite particular.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I have a close family connection to the Alamo going back to its inception. My family, I'm the 10th great grandson of the Guerra family, which arrived here in the 1718 expedition that settled San Antonio officially. And the other half of my family is indigenous. And so our connection to Texas goes back to, on the Spanish side, to the 1700s, to Mexico, to the 1500s, and America and the U.S. for thousands of years. So, it's kind of interesting to know that I'm literally working in a location where my ancestors worked and my ancestors built the structures that are there for the most part. So, it's kind of interesting to be on that side of the history too, and the fact that the Alamo's really been so generous with their time and their willingness to have me there, and they even asked me to make a replica of the key to the Alamo, which they I forged out in a replica of that, and then cast copies of it in pewter and those copies were mounted onto plaques that are being presented to exemplary people in the San Antonio area.
That's
So
cool.
you have to do something really big and of merit for San Antonio or recognition in the community, and they present this what's called the Key to the Alamo Award. So the very first one, I was there to present it, or help present it with Dr. Kate Rogers, the current CEO, COO of the Alamo, and Rebecca Hurini and her family. That was the recipient. So I was there for that one. And that was really cool to know that I'm part of a new tradition that the Alamo has started, and that they asked me to be the person that gets it going.
And I think that that's amazing that they're including in just empowering people by having that as a key, one, and two, like keeping history alive, right? Because I think a lot of people, like, they don't realize how easy it is to, I guess, forget history. That's why they really talk about, people that don't learn history are doomed to repeat it. It's very true. And I think that especially people watching, think maybe I can't do this, it'd be too hard. It is hard. And I can tell you, I've sanded off parts of me many times. However, I can tell you that doing it, the sense of satisfaction and pride when you finish a build, at least for me personally, it's a lot. Because you see the piece of metal from where it looks like you pulled it out of the trash to seeing some amazing blade that you made with your two hands and does not exist outside of that. I mean, made by you, of course. But at the end of the day, it's something that's truly unique, that you made, and you can show what you can do. What would you say is your favorite build that you've made in the time since you competed? So I know you made some pretty cool stuff.
Man,
I know he made some pretty cool
there are so many things. The Key to the Alamo was definitely really, really cool. That was fun to do. But the World Trade Center Project one for Redcon 1, cool. Veterans First Responders Group was another one, because seeing being able to work with any kind of material of importance historically. Typically, I'm working with something from a historical event that happened hundreds of years ago. For a lot of us, 9/11 was something not too long ago. And to know that we were working with something from that event, which is very, very humbling to begin with, to know that we were approached for that project, Tobin and I and a bunch of other local smiths. But to be able to present it in a meaningful way to an organization that's helping to raise awareness against veteran suicide. It's kind of like their backdrop piece to, support a fallen first responder, I think, in their organization. So that's definitely another one. And then there's the stuff like I've done with Mystic Seaport in Connecticut. Their historical blacksmith shop from the 1800s, where, the center of the whaling industry at a time in American history when that was extremely important for the survival of a lot of things. I mean, and to be in that shop, which hopefully I'll be back in a few weeks. I'll be back up there. I'm looking forward to that. The weather's going to be beautiful. And the view is spectacular. I have a view of the Mystic River, and the legendary Charles W. Morgan ship is right in my line of sight while I'm forging. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Forge with the view, that never happens. Usually you get the worst view in the forge.
Yeah. I was I'm watching that video that you just saw. I remember when I used to forge out from underneath that little rinky-dink carport. Now the shop that I'm in is a big steel building, formerly a hay barn that I emptied out and converted into a shop.
Hey, it works, man. As long as it works, the equipment all stays on. Nothing goes off when you're grinding or something.
You don't need a lot to do a lot. My first forge was a hole in the ground and a flat piece of metal that was about 1.5 inches thick. That was my anvil. So I didn't have a lot when I first got started. A hole in the ground forge and a hair dryer with a thick flat piece of metal. I didn't even have a railroad track anvil. Funny enough, I was going to say, I do have the railroad track anvil I got started on. It's actually, I keep it here at the office because sometimes we need it to fix things.
No, I have to
So
see it. Like, no, I
it's
want to
it's
see
in
it.
the back. Actually, it was like
Oh,
right
okay.
behind my desk. I just forget that it's there. I actually had to use it today. So
Nice.
a student locked themselves out of their vehicle, and I had to use it to like shape this piece of metal so I can like get in there and do stuff.
Nice. Like, what is it, like a Slim Jim? You made it, you forged a Slim
Pretty
Jim
much,
at
yeah.
school?
I was like, I don't have a grinder here, so I was just like, let me finagle this thing out of a coat hanger and a
MacGyver, you
couple other
just
things.
a coat hanger. That's how you can always tell like smiths and makers, because they want to make stuff out of everything. You know, like for me, like I make all kinds of different stuff. You know, and what's amazing is that when you meet so many different blacksmiths and makers, like they really do get access to the most interesting materials you will ever find.
Yes.
Like, like unfortunately, we are gonna have the other maker come on, but unfortunately due to scheduling, he was unable to make it today. But I mean, the things he's forged are pretty amazing as well. And I think it's important for us just to know that you can absolutely self-teach yourself things. You know, just because you're not
Absolutely.
in a fancy class, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do it or you couldn't learn. I mean, I've known people that went to med school at 45. I mean, they started over. Like, they were fighter pilots. They said, I want to be a doctor today. Like, and they literally started everything all over again. You know, I know providers that had their own practice, and they moved out to a different country, and they literally had to be a pizza delivery boy while they were getting all of their certifications over a second time. And he had one of the biggest facilities in India at the time. So, to have to do that, it's humbling, and it's been a hard experience. But for you, what kept you going when you were starting to self-teach yourself off the YouTube videos?
One thing I've learned about blacksmithing is that you can't claim one thing, and you can't claim that you're a master maker because your work shows it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's one of those things where you can't claim that you're some sort of an expert because your work reflects that. It's very humbling and it's very telling. Like being a blacksmith specifically, especially historical traditional blacksmithing, where you have less of a reliance on modern tooling, and you can do this by hand, is not just a show of your endurance. It's also a show of your skill, your ability to manipulate metal with no other additional supports, which are modern equipment. And I think it's because early on, it's like I wanted to learn how to do this thing. Well, then I learned how to do that thing. So I want to try that thing. So I see some other thing that I want to try out, and it never stops. Like I can't even tell you how big of a list I have of things I want to do that I know I'm not going to get around to doing, because I know by the time I get to that, I'm going to have 15 other things I want to try. So that's where it's like having that carrot just dangling in front of you the whole time. You're just trying to keep going. You think you're going to get it, and maybe you do, but then you see something better, and you're like, I want to try that too. And
It gives me so much trouble. I always do that.
Yeah, and if you're an ADD addled human being like myself, it definitely, you have to stick to a list, and you have to stick to a very tight schedule, because I will wander in the shop. I should be doing this. I should be doing this custom order. Why did I start making this Warhammer, which had absolutely nothing to do with the things I needed to do today? And I'm on a tight time frame, but like,
it was cool.
Let me just make a 16th century. Let me make a 16th century Italian Warhammer.
Man, seeing what you did from the Roman era, I was geeking out when I saw like that 9/11 community build that you guys did. And like that the handle itself is from the Roman era, is it not?
The whole body style is, based on the Roman gladius. I don't know if the material itself, like the handle material, had anything of like historical import.
I'm sure.
I do remember the handle being purple heart, and the top parts and the bottom part were, I want to say olive wood, because it didn't strike me as maple. I have pictures of it somewhere, but
I was like, it looks like it is different colors slightly. Like I did see the build I know you're talking about, and we could post it as well. But I mean, I can just imagine like the looks on people's faces when they opened it and saw like what you guys sent them back, when they sent you basically parts of like the beam of was it the North Tower? I think it was.
I believe so. Yes.
And like it was just like a beam, like of just damaged like steel, really. And you guys basically took it, stripped it down to its core elements, manipulated it, and made it into something truly amazing. And I think it really rings true for a lot of people, especially in the veteran or first responder community, that think, I'm broken. There's no way I can come back from this, and they just feel like that depression hit them because they don't feel that there's anything that would really be beneficial, like that they can really go past that trauma. And showing people that, there's all different ways that you can learn things. You don't have to spend tens to 20,000 or more. Like, it's all a matter of drive, right? And going online, watching videos, I took a 3-day course, and then after that, I've been just like learning like from courses here and there. But and we've done some builds as well, like the one for the Ink Master, who I'm seeing tomorrow at I had. He says hello, by the way. But but Chris Woodson, like, I mean, when he saw that knife that we made, so last year about this time actually, so it's kind of interesting that you're on now. This another veteran and I went on a wild adventure through the podcast because I found out that she had been on a tattooing nonprofit's waitlist for 3 years, and so we had actually found an ink master who's a Marine who agreed to tattoo her free. So we just had to get her out of the state to get her tattoo. And so we did a bunch of wild things to get there. But as a thank you, and I also wanted to get Maggie kind of out of the house more because, she doesn't go out much. And I wanted her to kind of see, like, there's all different ways that you can enjoy your life. You don't necessarily have to be normal to have an amazing life. And literally, like, we didn't know that human bone is wildly valuable until after we made it. And because she actually deboned her own leg, and which I believe you saw, but I saw afterwards. But yeah, I heard you saw that before. But yes,
I was there.
Yeah, there's so many grown men puking that day, I've heard. But yeah, so she literally brought her whole leg into the forge, and they had to use a turkey fryer, if I remember, a week before Thanksgiving. So all these like hard, gentleman types that are kind of, I don't throw up, everyone's puking, like, basically. So it's just, I thought it was pretty funny. I mean, they didn't know it was free, but I thought it was pretty hilarious, actually. But at the end of the day, with Maggie, when she made this knife, we made a drop point hunting knife for the Ink Masters as his tip as a thank you. Well, she had a bunch of her legs still left, like most of it, all the bones in her feet, like most, like everything below the knee, like that where the amputation was. Like she only used about this much, like maybe about 3 inches or so for her handle for the blade that she made during that class that you were part of. But she still had like most of everything. So I was like, well, why don't we just use a couple small pieces and just inlay it in the handle or something? That way it keeps you out of the house. But we didn't know how valuable human bone was. And so when we were finishing it up, we inlaid it in purple heartwood burl. I think she found a set of scales in the scrap bin, which is funny because like you would never imagine purple heartwood burl ever being in the scrap bin, because it's in a very expensive wood from Africa, and it quite literally sands like a beautiful red purple color. And there's like red heartwood, I think, and yellow heartwood as well. I may be wrong on that, but it's beautiful and it looks amazing in any blade you can imagine. And so when we were finishing it up, that's when we found out it was worth like $10,000 to $30,000 starting. And I was like, what? And he's like, we got to tell him he can't ever get rid of that blade. I'm like, I don't think he's going to. But we gave the actual knife to the Ink Master, like his face. Like he was like, this is the best tip I've ever been given. And he's been tattooing for about 30 years now. And I mean, his shop is literally called No Hard Feelings from Lost Boys. It's like a line from the movie. So it's just kind of funny that, like, two women made like something when we had like no experience. Like, I mean, we took the class, but like we were not like experienced makers of any kind, but we had a lot of help from some phenomenal brothers that helped us with our project. And it was something that it meant a lot. I mean, we weren't trying to make money on it. We just wanted to thank someone for doing a solid for us when they could have charged massively. In the military, this tattooing world, they call it the asshole tax, where they pay you astronomical fees or ad because they don't like you very much. So, you know, I mean, they could have absolutely done that, and they didn't. And I think that that was amazing that we were able to build it, one, in time, because we barely had time. I think we took one picture of it, and two, just to empower other people, you know, because, like, I mean, I don't know, like, I never have competed on Forge and Fire, but I love watching the show. But, like, that mannequin is worth a lot more than they tell people. I think it's worth, like, what, 10 grand?
2,000.
Yeah. It's not like
Yeah, several
nothing.
thousand.
It's not Jello that you're slicing. It looks like Jello,
No.
but it's not. See, I'd be there.
Yeah.
I'd be there, like, pecking it. Like, that'd be me. I'd get in trouble.
Yeah, that ballistics gel stuff is actually fairly dense and fairly expensive. So yeah, it's a very cool. I've seen it in person, how they've done the ballistics testing and everything. Yeah, no, it's a close human analog for sure. They had
I want to
one
do the
at the
jiggle
Texas.
test.
They had one at the Texas Select Show, and it was, of course, I got to mess around with it a little bit. I'm just like, how dense is this thing? And I'm like, oh, it's actually got some substance to it. You know, I always thought the same thing. I thought it was going to be like Jello or something like that, you know, extra jiggly.
Right.
But, you know, it's a little more dense than that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just because, like, it looks so easy. But I mean, the blades you guys make are ridiculously sharp. Like, people don't understand, like, just what you could do on a grinder. Like, man, those false edges though. But no, definitely though. Like, I can't, you know, explain it enough. Like, I mean, the blades that they make are very, very sharp, and you know what they're showing on those mannequins. Like, it's because of how well made those blades are. It's not just because, you know, like, they want like a TV effect. Like, no, like, it's absolutely because of the fact that, I mean, to make a blade, like, I mean, it's not easy to do, especially when you're quenching it. If you drop the blade, it actually shatters like glass because it's so hot. So, I mean, you definitely are using materials when it's at its breaking point or is most malleable, and you're making it into something that's truly interesting and unique. And you're not always going to succeed. There's a lot of oopsies. I don't know how many blades that I have totally, like, messed up, like, or if I'm almost done and then I, like, take way too much off and, like, I have to start all over. You know, it's frustrating, but I mean, I
have a bucket of those.
You?
A bucket of failed projects. Yeah, no, I still mess things up from time to time. Anyone who says that they don't is lying to you. But yeah, no, I still botch. I did that the other day. I had a piece where it's a shackle on a very, very small piece, you know, and it's got a pivot a very specific way. And in the drilling process, the drill kind of went off center and just cracked this piece of material I was working on, and this little forge shackle. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done.
You hit
Not
that
after
point.
I flipped a chair or something, but I was like, son of a bitch. It was like the last thing I wanted to get done in the day, and it just went to absolute hell. So I'm gonna have to revisit that too, because I really want to get that project finished and sold before I leave at the end of the month. So yeah, I'm just getting some stuff finished up and out the door.
So, so what are some upcoming events that, if anyone wanted to check out what you make or your forge itself, where can we find you?
Okay. Volundr Forge will the shop that I operate out of is, you know, my home shop is, you know, where I do 99% of my work. The shop that Tobin and I work out of, that's very much his space. So I literally just come in to use that space. We teach classes there and everything. So it's all on the Volundr Forge website. Tobin is another Forge and Fire champion contestant. He was on Beat the Judges, and you know, he has his own style of knife. You know, big, imposing, heavy choppers. And you were at his shop today, so you get it.
He got a lot of natural, like, horns and stuff as, like, the handles. Like, he's very much
not a natural horn and bone material. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, no. So that's kind of where, you know, people can interact with us. We got an open forge coming up on Monday. as a matter of fact, I want to start running a special just to the end of the year that, hey, look, open forges are going to be $35 a night to just come in and do stuff. We have a press, we have a power hammer, we have big forges and everything, and grinders. I won't run that one to the end of the year because, things have to go up a little bit because, everything has gone up. But we're going to run that special. And I think I need to change that on the website here today just to let everyone know, hey, look, this is what we got going on. This is what it's going to be. Go to the end of the year. So, and we have a class next weekend,
Nice.
The 14th, 15th, an introductory class, the bladesmithing class, actually. And it's one of the few that we're going to be doing between now and the end of the year that are tailored towards beginners.
So
really,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it's one of the few that will have tailored towards beginners because I think the rest of the semester. Sorry, I work for a college campus, so I'm actually at work still. I'm at the
I'm
office.
so sorry.
When I say campus, I'm just thinking of later semesters. I'm just like, oh wait, no, we're talking about something else here. But yeah, no, we're the rest of the year we're going to have a handful of beginner classes. Not very many because we want to focus things towards people who've already taken our classes, more advanced ones, people with experience now that we've kind of fostered our own community of people who've come through our doors. So yeah, we want to give something to them rather than the same old. So like the
Nice.
Viking hammer class we just did.
I missed it. I would have taken that class.
Yeah, that was fun. And two of those people were repeat students who'd been there before.
Nice.
Two of them were completely new, and they made some really awesome, hammers there.
And that's cool that you're helping them and you're empowering people because of the fact that, like, for those of you that don't know, an open forge night basically means you can just show up, and pay the fee. If you have to take the training course first, so basic knowledge on how to use the machines.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like
most of the time, people who come in have already been through a class or have experience. It's kind of rare that we get people with no experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't be a learning process. Open Forge is not a time to really learn unless you're like, here's a piece of metal, have at it. But, because normally we're all working on our own things.
Yep.
If I'm in there, I'm probably going to be using the power hammer for stuff. So
For sure. And I mean, honestly, like the press, I'm all about the press. That's me. But everybody kind of does things differently. Like, I mean, usually I spend the most time on the grinder. I'm gonna be honest, just because like I don't like tick marks at all on my blades. Like, I like it to be like smooth and as perfect as it possibly can be, which isn't necessarily the most realistic. However, I think everybody when they're working on blades or metal in general, I think they have their own things that they like to see in their metal. I think that's what's interesting about it is because it really shows you the personality of a person if you look at their builds. Like, like things that they wouldn't necessarily tell you outright, but if you look at those builds, like a lot of times you can figure out the maker by certain things if you know enough, or two, like it's just like certain types of styles. Like you're like, oh, that's this person's, that's their build. Like example, like Matt, like like for him, like kid, or he makes like the little small dirk, like small blades, like hidden dirks or something. That's like his thing, and they're always like at a certain curve, and they're always fun colors, But everyone is so different, and I think that's the fun thing about working in the shop is just that you really never know until you try something, and so why not try something that it gets you out of the house, that really pushes your imagination to its limit, because it's, you don't just come in one day like, guess what I'm gonna do today. A lot of times, you've been thinking about it for a while, or you have like a specific idea in mind, and that's the only thing that you want to make is something like that idea. Like for me, like my next build, I'm one of those people, like if I see enough blades like in movies and stuff, like I'm like, I could do something cool like that, but maybe I would change this, So for me, like over the summer, I saw Rob Stein in Europe, and Mine tells one of her songs, and they have like a butcher's knife, a giant butcher's knife, like attached to his microphone, and I'm like, that's it, I'm making one. So now I want to make one. We'll see how that goes. But definitely, I mean, test yourself. I mean, and that doesn't have to be, you don't have to be better to do it. I mean, in general, test yourself. The worst thing you will find is that you need to practice more to make whatever it is you're doing look better, and you will be frustrated with it. But you may find that it's something that really truly makes you happy and brings you peace. You know, for me, like when too much is going on, like, you know, things make sense when I go in the forge, if that makes any
Yes.
amount of sense. But it's just
No.
like, you know, you can focus on it,
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from.
So we're going to go ahead and close out tonight. But
Yes.
if anybody wants to reach out to us at our show, it's BSA and the Veteran Podcast. For Alex, it's the Volundr Forge .com. Is that right?
Yeah, volundrforge.com or Volundr_Forge on Instagram.
Yep, on Instagram. Yep. And if anyone that wants to see more of his builds, definitely check out his work on Instagram. He's got a ton of interesting content, photos. You know, if you have questions, you want to go out to one of those Forge the community build nights, you know, say, hey, you probably see me in there too, looking wild like always. When I'm in the Forge, I do not go to look cute, okay? Like, I go there because I want to make a knife. But at the end of the day, you know, try something. You know, push yourself. You never know what you're going to find. You know, and we always end our shows every week with just like your final thoughts. So what are some final thoughts from you?
When I was on the show, I think the last words I said on the show were, or at least the little closer was, never stop learning. And I think that's kind of the motto for me still. It's just never stop learning.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, really, you hit the nail on the head, literally. I mean, people that think that they've learned everything, as much as people tell me I'm a know-it-all, you're not. I'm never going to know it all, man. Like, there was like a time in my 20s that I thought I did. I don't. Not even close. You know, but at the end of the day, it's about taking care of ourselves and be our own best advocates, taking care of each other, and really just trying to see what's your new normal, right? And I think that this is definitely a great way to check it out. So anyone that has any questions or is interested, yes, chicks go in the Forge. I'm in there a good amount of times, and I'm just a female that is in the Forge. There are many females that I've met or I've had to go through courses. So if you have questions, if you're not sure, you know, definitely reach out to us. There's lots of programs that help veterans, first responders, or the community. You know, you can even sign up for like small courses to just do like a knife in an hour. Like, there's tons of ways you can learn to do things, but it's just, you know, making that first step and reaching out, you know. So definitely have a good night, guys, and we'll go ahead and let you go. And I am going to be playing hooky when this is played in Florida, seeing an Ink Master finally getting my art fixed. I'm so excited. But either way, guys, please reach out. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to be suffering in silence. So have a good rest of the day, guys. Be good or be good at it. Bye.